The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, is seeking citizen support in fighting insecurity in Nigeria. And the House of Representatives is in search of an unaccounted 200 billion naira. But where is this money? Public funds. Auditor General's report is very damning on this matter. We'll be getting insight into all of this tonight. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sowore Kimaloe. Tonight we'll bring you one-on-one and face-to-face with some of the major stories in the land. So we'll begin by letting you know what the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, said today. He's asking Nigerians to support the armed forces in his quest to combat violent groups and insurgents. At a forum here in Abuja, General Musa emphasized the need for trust, civic engagement, and responsible narratives as keys to addressing insecurity. He pointed out that insurgency tends to grow when citizens provide space, support, or visibility to those working against national peace.
We must learn to say no to monsters. Any evil one that means by planning any evil against this country must never, ever be supported. Because it is the silence of the majority that gives them that opportunity to grow to who they become. The people must be part of the solution. I always want to remind people that the citizens, that the terrorists survive within the communities. If we allow them, they will thrive. If we disallow them, they will never survive. First and Second World War are very clear. When citizens stood up against the enemy, they didn't give them food, they didn't give them fuel, because sometimes you sit down and think, 16 years we'll be fighting Boko Haram, how have they been surviving? Who has been funding them? These are questions we should ask ourselves. We sacrifice everything for this country. And that's why we want to appeal to Nigerians to support your armed forces, support your government, because without your support, it's not possible. National security, citizenship, everybody has a role to play. It is when we come together to uphold this that this country will thrive, not allowing the enemy to break into gaps between us.
General Christopher Musa there, the Chief of Defense Staff. But tonight, we are looking for 250 billion, not personal money to anyone, public funds, your money, my money. He said is unaccounted for 250 billion naira. Where could these funds be? There is now a trend by ministry and departments and agencies of government where they are not following guidelines and the standards in accountability in public office. And this has been exposed by the Auditor General's report. And the House of Representatives is probing into this matter. Tonight, we dig into that for you, and we'll bring you up to speed. What about Osun State funds that have been seized by the federal government? Where is that money? Okay, what is going on between Osun State and the federal government? Is it about the local government elections? We'll be finding out also and getting some insight. Also, there is perhaps one man that the APC don't like to hear, and it's Omoyele Sowore. He's also going to be speaking with us tonight on the program, but that's going to be after this break, everyone. We'll go and check out some of your political roundup stories.
The federal government has restated its determination to fully migrate all exit examinations for senior secondary schools in Nigeria to computer-based tests in 2026. The Minister of State for Education outlined the plans when she visited some centers for the ongoing senior exams of the West African Examination Council, WAEC, in Abuja.
With the CBT, issues of delays in terms of transportation in terms of because it's raining will be eliminated, because the examination are already in the school. We have the computers and everything, and they can access using the computer to actually access the question.
A former senator who represented Kaduna Central District in the 8th National Assembly, Shehu Sani, has appealed for Northerners to support the second-term bid of President Bola Tinubu to complete the 8 years Southwest presidency in 2027. He also criticized past Northern political leaders for their failure to develop the region despite holding power for 11 years. Addressing a press conference in Kaduna, the senator who defected to the ruling All Progressives Congress from the People's Democratic Party commended President Bola Tinubu's administration for his progressive efforts in the development of the North within his 2 years in office, calling for Northerners to support the president for re-election in 2027.
Critics should be listened to, and where they lie, they should be responded to. And this country will be great if there is equitable development in all parts of Nigeria. But for those of us from this part, we appreciate the progress made so far.
The Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, has described as dangerous the trend of misinterpreting court judgments rather than complying with them. Speaking at a one-day workshop on judicial reform in Abuja, Professor Suleiman notes that there has been conflict as a result of multiple understandings among different tiers of the judiciary and calls for proper legal understanding among key players.
What is paramount to all of us is our collective goal, Nigerian projects. That's most important. It should not just be about you, or about how it favors you, about your interests. It should be about national interest.
Market women in the Federal Capital Territory defied the early morning showers as they led a campaign in support of the Reserved Seats Bill, a constitutional proposal seeking to increase female representation at all levels in the nation's legislature. The Director of Programs at the TOS Foundation, Mr. Kenneth Sintim, said the sensitization will encourage more support for the bill.
50% of the Nigerian population is made up of women, and they're the ones that come out to vote. They need to be aware of their civic duties, that they need to participate in politics. Right now, the political representation is very, very, very poor. We have less than 3% of women in National Assembly. What we can do more better, when in every electoral cycle, over 50% of women come out to cast their vote.
A youth advocacy group under the auspices of the Renewed Hope Youth Alliance are calling on the federal government to expedite action on the development of the Ondo State seaport, describing it as a key driver for economic transformation in the state and in the country. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the national coordinator of the group says investing in the seaport will facilitate trade, which would attract investors and ultimately lead to the creation of thousands of jobs for youth in the region.
We urge the federal government, heavily led by President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to prioritize the development of Ondo State Seaport by increasing patronage and support for this project.
So let's get to it. In a country where snake eats money, elephant eats money, money are missing, money is missing, and we're just in a funny situation where enormous amount of money is missing, and nobody is held accountable. Nothing is done. Yeah. Okay, so I'll take you to the House of Representatives today, where the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives has revealed that according to the Accountant General's report, over 250 billion naira in public expenditures remain unaccounted for. The chairman of the committee, Mr. Honorable Bamidele Salam, said that these while briefing journalists at the National Assembly. It says the committee also listed high incidence of unauthorized violence, growing numbers of audit queries each fiscal year, and the reported cases of more than 60% of MDAs persistently failing to comply with financial regulations as trends which continue to erode public trust, undermine sustainable national development, and weaken our democratic institutions. So let's now get to hear more from Honorable Bamidele Salam, who is the chair of the House Committee on Public Accounting. It's live for us here in our Abuja studio. Thanks so much, Honorable, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, Nigerians.
Thank you so much indeed. How damning is the report of the Auditor General from the Auditor General's office?
Well, the report of the Auditor General, to put it in a context, is a statutory report. It's a constitutional report, which the Constitution, under Section 85, has made mandatory for the Auditor General, apart from issuing a report on the consolidated financial statement of the Federation, to also issue reports based on the audit exercises carried out on ministries, departments, and agencies, and see the level of their compliance with extant laws and regulations on finances. And over the years, of course, the report has contained very worrisome discoveries, very worrisome incident of impunity, violation of several of our laws, as well as outright theft of public funds. And the one we're talking about in particular in this instance, has to do with the audit exercise carried out by the Auditor General for the Federation for the years 2019, 2020, and 2021, because the last of the set of reports that was presented to the National Assembly by that office, as required by the Constitution, is the 2021 report. And that is where these various sums that we have spoken about have been discovered, misappropriated, misapplied, quite a number of issues.
Infractions.
Identified, yes, by the Auditor General. Well, you said 250 billion naira, but I want to assure you that it's even more than that. If you take into consideration also the report of the Auditor General on the expenditure of the COVID-19 funds of almost over 1 trillion naira. And what the Auditor General discovered about the
ones we
COVID-19
borrowed?
expenditure.
Is it the ones they borrowed or the ones that came from the coffers
both
of the federal
the
government?
ones from our normal appropriation and the ones that are intervention funds. Of course, some were borrowed and some were intervention funds from special purpose vehicles created to address, one, the pandemic itself, and then the fallout of the pandemic in terms of reflating the economy. Those are also very mind-boggling disclosures by the Office of the Auditor General.
And these are years, the years in review, under review rather, are years when Muhammadu Buhari was president of Nigeria, 2019, 2020, and 2021.
Absolutely, there are those years where President Muhammadu Buhari was the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And up to now, the report of the Auditor General shows that there are great infractions, unaccounted funds, misapplied funds, misappropriated funds, and nothing has yet been done. Are there ministry agencies names that have been identified? Because in government spending, there are linkage to personality, to offices, and to specific names. What do we know, Honorable?
All right, so it will actually not be correct to also say nothing is being done or nothing is being done. That would not be absolutely correct, because these things also take processes. Some of the issues identified by the General for the Federation are issues that for example, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has taken up an issue. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Emefiele saga, for example, which were also a product of some of the forensic audits that were carried out by a special set of auditors appointed by government. And you see, some of these reports, for example, talking about the COVID-19, the COVID-19 investigation took about 3 months in the Public Accounts Committee, and the reports were laid before the House, considered by the House, and those recommendations normally will go back also to the executive for some administrative, some, legal processes where people need to be charged to court, where people need to be indicted, and whatever. Let me give you some of the instances of the things contained in those reports we're talking about. For example, there is a report that there are overpayment of almost 100 billion naira to contractors. There are reports about irregular payment of allowances totaling over 25 billion naira to persons, both political office holders, non-political office holders within the period. There's a report on non-deduction of statutory stamp duty of over 500 million naira. In other words, money that were meant to be deducted and paid to the government, to the FIRS, were not even deducted. Violation of due process on procurement, 800 billion naira. Government revenue not accounted for, about 35 billion naira. Like I said, when this report comes before the National Assembly and committed to the Public Account Committee, what we do is to sit like a jury. So we provide opportunities for those ministries, departments, and agencies that are indicted by the Auditor General to come forward for a defense. And in most cases, what you find is that these agencies will write in asking for more time, pushing for a postponement of hearings, and also showing one of the reasons why some of these things become also a little bit complex is because imagine considering a report of what happened in year 2020 in 2025. Some of the major actors in the approval and execution of the funding pattern are either retired, they have changed job roles, or some have even died in the course of time.
The crime scene, the evidence has led the crime scene.
Almost, that. So at times it provides also a fait accompli that all that you are doing is similar to what the court will say it has turned to an academic exercise. But nevertheless, we still, as a parliament, interrogate those issues and lay that report before the plenary. As I speak with you, we have concluded on the report of the 2019 Auditor General's report, laid before the House. 2020, fully concluded, laid before the House, as well as the COVID-19 investigation I told you has been concluded and laid before the House. There are quite a number of recoveries also that we have made, even in the course of time. If you have, I'm sure even the Chinese television reported a few of those recoveries in the oil and gas sector. Monies of almost 9 trillion naira that were meant to have been paid into the coffers of the federal government being sat upon by major business concerns in the oil and gas sector. And the Public Accounts Committee went into it, and many of these companies have started, paying
the Auditor General report also revealed, and this is quite interesting, but because when we had conversation on this program about the state of our refineries, there are those who came up and started spitting garbage because there are things that we knew they were wrong in some of the processes that went around the refineries. And now we're hearing that the Port Harcourt refinery, there are issues, there are this and that. But here, listen to what the Auditor General report, which I'd like you to also shed some light on. Now, in that report, published in November 2024, the report highlighted unauthorized deductions of 82 billion naira from Federation revenue for refinery rehabilitation. It also uncovered irregular deductions amounting to 343 billion naira from domestic crude sales at the source. It revealed that 343 billion naira was deducted unilaterally from gross domestic...
Did you say 2024, please?
2024, yeah. Published in November 2024, the Auditor General account. And it's also revealing that there are, from the gross domestic crude sales for NNPC value shortfalls, strategic stock holding costs, this is over 343 billion naira. And these are money that are supposed to directly benefit the oil and gas sector.
Okay, let me correct something. The report was published in 2024, but it is a report that has to do with expenditure incurred in 2022 and 2021. And like I said, these are the reports that are currently being considered by the House, some of which we have concluded investigation on and submitted the report. And it will not also be very good for me to go into the merit or demerit of some of those investigations, which letters have been written out to those agencies to provide us with further report. But like I said, Sheon, a major problem that we have, which we also think we need to close that gap, is that of lack of cooperation from most of these ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Even if those who committed or allegedly committed those infractions have left service or they have retired, it does not mean that the records that are in the custody of these MDAs should not be made available to Parliament, because these records will speak to those issues. It is the oral testimonies that we may not be able to get, to be able to corroborate whatever is on the records. But what you have in most cases are MDAs trying all that they can to ensure that this does not happen.
Procedurally, just as you have in the courts, that there is a term for a particular case, especially in election matter, for it to run. Hasn't the rules of the House also provide for tenure upon which you can sit on this matter, and also sanctions to MDAs who are refusing or dodging or hiding away from this kind of scrutiny?
Well, unfortunately, there's no specific timeline provided for in our rules. But the committee, at least the 10th House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts, has decided that after 3 unresponded invitations to any ministry, department, or agency, when we invited you 3 times and refused to reply, we will assume that you do not have a defense for those issues raised by the Auditor General for the Federation, and based on that, we'll go on to issue our report. But don't forget what I've told you. Unlike what happens in some other claims. In some claims, for example, I know that in Kenya, in South Africa, there is something similar to having a public account tribunal, where agencies or ministries that are indicted by the Public Account Committee will not have to be reported back to the executive. Because in this case, what you do is that you are reporting the executive to itself, unless you have a very strong willpower on the part of those who are charged with those responsibilities. You can have report lying there for so many weeks and so many months and so many years, and nothing will happen. Let me give you one example, Sheo. There are many instances where, at the time of auditing, agencies refuse to provide the Auditor General with required documents, payment vouchers, both prepayment and post-payment vouchers, which are required by the Auditor General. But by the time the matter comes to the Public Account Committee, those that come to appear suddenly will bring those documents. A document that was not available in 2018, 2019, 2020, suddenly surfacing in 2021, 22, 23, should raise some red flags. In some other jurisdictions, especially I know that about the public account system in Ghana, as long as those documents were not provided within 14 days, of which they are required by the Auditor General to provide it, you are started bad from presenting them to anybody, either the parliament or the court or any other. And these are some of the reforms which the Public Account Committee is trying to push, that we should also have now public accountability system.
In your mind, and you see all of this report, don't you wonder how some of these infractions go on? How dirty or how... I'm trying to use the right adjective. How did things go wrong?
They are quite mind-boggling.
For public funds?
Well, you see...
In this age and time of digital trace and digital monitoring of public funds.
From my own experience, Sean, I think it's a combination of factors. And some of the factors, one of the volume of the reports that the Auditor General submit to Parliament talks about internal control weaknesses. Some of the major infractions that you see are also as a result of lack of these control mechanisms in our various institutions, which is something that is very mind-boggling. Like Riley said, in this age and time, there are a lot of things that we should have put into our systems in a manner that will prevent. Because I'm an advocate of prevention when it comes to the issue of, accountability, lack of it, and fraud and what have you. If we are able to put in mechanisms that makes it even very difficult for these infractions to happen in the first instance, you will have less volume of money you are chasing after in terms of trying to recover, public funds. And that is why I think the issue of the audit bill, which the House of Reps has passed, and we are also believing that the Senate will concur and pass the audit bill, comes in. The audit institution is the most veritable tool of preventing most of these infractions from happening. I mean, unfortunately, we have a very weak institution, even at that level, and so, it becomes so messy.
There are those who also hold some of you accountable, those of you who are in government, and perhaps how some of you who are in parliament look on as some of these things happen. And those of you in opposition will perhaps now have a bigger role to play. For example, someone will ask, who passed the budget, or where did the money for the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, who approved that budget? Where did it come from? Where did the money come from? And a few other spendings of the executive. These are big questions. Are you not worried about that?
Well, Sheo, I do not think that with the system we have in place at the moment, it will be possible for anyone to spend a public expenditure of that magnitude with that budgetary provision.
The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway Fund
come
to the National Assembly.
I'm coming, Sheung. There are quite a number of funding options in the budget. There are funding options in the budget, for example, that are under Special Intervention Fund. There are funding options in the budget that are covered by our external borrowings, and they are also approved by the National Assembly. But in most cases, what people look for example, is maybe, a particular line item of an issue being brought before the National Assembly. I agree with you, absolutely, that we need to do more, especially those of us who are from the minority political party, need to do more in holding government accountable to the people as enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution.
There are those who will be asking questions, Honorable.
But it's not as if it's
the Coastal Highway, the procurement of the plane that was added to the presidential fleet.
I can tell you that the issue of the presidential aircraft passed through all legislative processes. Now, if you ask for my personal opinion, it's a different thing. On whether those things ought to have scaled through passage, that's a different matter. But the purchase of the presidential aircraft passed through the appropriate committee of the House and was laid before the House and passed for implementation by the House of Representatives. Certainly that was done.
And both all of you in the National Assembly gives a thumb up.
No, now that is the issue. It is a democracy. In a democracy, you do not need everybody to agree on to anything. The majority will have its way, while the minority will have its say. The All Progressive Congress, which is the party in government today, has an overwhelming majority in both chambers of the National Assembly.
Are they overwhelming too in the manner in which things are going in the country? You're a member of the People's Democratic Party.
Oh, yes, I am.
A leading voice in the People's Democratic Party. Are you and your colleagues in the opposition happy with the way and manner things are going in the country?
Well, we wish things are better than they are today. I wish they are better. The PDP wishes things are done better. And in most cases, when government comes out with any policy, the People's Democratic Party, the Labour Party, and all the other parties in the minority brings out their position. Now, where it becomes worrying, and I must admit, because, leadership is about taking responsibility, is the fact that I believe that as members of the minority political parties in the parliament, we ought to do more in keeping government on its toes and in ensuring that there are alternate views, alternate positions, alternate viewpoints, alternate agenda.
Are the voices of the ruling members drowning yours in the parliament?
Well,
in the opposition.
You understand, Seun, there are quite a number of things that happened from the beginning of how the government itself was put up and how the minority parties in the parliament have been outpaced in terms of number. I mean, it's clear. And you see the flocking of people now from those minority parties into the majority political party, which is why people are crying, oh, that Nigeria is going to be turned into a one-party state and what have you. Of course, the minority voice is being daily decimated. It is not that the leadership of the House is not giving opportunity for anybody to air their view. And there are so many instances on the floor of the parliament that we have aired our views on very controversial matters and stood up to them. But we can't have our way because we do not have the number.
We understand that
it's a game of numbers.
The defection tsunami is going to your state gradually.
I don't know what you're talking about. Which
Honorable Wale Oke has left for the APC. We understand that there are talks with your governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, to also. Are you planning also to move to the APC?
No. And the answer is no. There's no plan of moving to the All Progressive. None that I'm aware of.
What about Senator Ademola Adeleke?
No,
you're a very good friend.
Yes, he's my leader. He's the governor of Osun State. He's doing very well. And he doesn't take any decision without carrying along all the stakeholders. A few weeks ago, he called a meeting of the stakeholders of the People's Democratic Party in Osun State and told us that he has decided to remain in the People's Democratic Party, the party that gave him the mantle of leadership to govern Osun State. And he's doing very well. The people of the state are very happy with him.
For 4 months now.
I don't have any issue with him. Yeah.
Also, 3 or 4 months now, the allocations to Osun State have been withheld.
Unfortunately.
Since February.
Allocations to local government in Osun State.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And on that, I actually find it very difficult to think that this was done with the express approval of Mr. President. I know President Bola Ahmed Tinubu fairly well. I know he's a Democrat. I know he's a fighter. I know he's the man who believes in social justice, especially when it comes to political struggle. And for the man who stood up against that when President Olusegun Obasanjo took the same step to seize local government funds in Lagos State, I will find it very, very difficult to think that he gave an approval for funds meant for payment of salary of workers of local government, funds meant to run primary health care, funds meant to maintain roads and provide borehole to people will be withheld by the federal government for 4 months.
Is it not?
I think some people somewhere.
The big question is in the manner in which Senator Adeleke and the government of Osun State had handled the issue of local government administration.
How was it handled?
And we understand that the Osun State government has since gone to the Supreme Court to challenge the position of the Attorney General of the Federation in withholding. And the Attorney General has stated it clearly that if you do not abide by the Supreme Court judgment on autonomy of the local government...
So what is the content of that judgment that Osun State government has violated? I don't know of any. Not one.
So you think this is
political? Let me even tell you, Sheung, if anything, Governor Adeleke should be commended for being one of very few governors who stood by the implementation of the Supreme Court judgment. Immediately that judgment was given by the Supreme Court. Unlike some other governors, Governor Adeleke dissolved all caretaker committees and immediately set in machinery the motion for election for conduct of election in Osun State. How many governors did that in Nigeria? The elections were conducted. 1 year notice for conduct of election. The elections were conducted. Local government chairmen and councillors were elected based on a valid order of the court.
So withholding of the allocation, so what else in your own view, is unjust?
Very unjust, illegal, unconstitutional, and inhumane. Like I've said,
do you think this is political?
If not, of course, yes. Of course, but
you think because your party,
but I don't know.
He said it's being run by PDP.
I don't know.
That's why
I don't know those who may be playing that politics. But Sheung, I know it is political. But like I've said, I don't think the president, he's the father of the nation. He's the leader of the nation.
Not be aware of that kind of
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt based on his antecedent on similar matters and issues. And I want to believe that he will not become president and suddenly, capitulate on the values he has held, on the positions he has held, on the constitutionality of the federal system of government. This is a federal system of government, for God's sake. The Constitution has delineated powers and responsibilities to each tier of government. And it will be unjust to cripple the third tier of government for whatever reason in a state of the federation. I think it is unfair, unjust, and inhuman.
Honorable Bamdele Salam is a member of the People's Democratic Party representing the Osun State in the House of Representatives and is the chair of the Public Accounts Committee in the House of Representatives. Thanks so much indeed, Honorable, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. We'll take a break, everyone, but when we return, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, the AAC presidential candidate in the 2023 elections, will be joining me. We shall be dissecting Tinubu and the first 2 years in office. We'll be getting his views on the state of the nation. Join us again, everyone. We continue our focus on the 2 years assessment of President Bola Tinubu since he assumed office came on the wings of the Renewed Hope Agenda, a manifesto that contains promises on reforms, fuel subsidy removal, foreign exchange unification, agricultural revival, and national security overall. And I did say yesterday that, look, you can only judge or mark any candidate who is in office that are taking the mantle of leadership based on what they said they will do. And it's fair enough to be able to judge President Bola Tinubu based on what he said he was going to do. It was a promise. And he said it, that, look, I was the one who asked for the job. I'm the one who made the promises. Don't pity me. I'm the one who got myself into all of this. Well, then, after the first 2 years in office, as I feared, it's only you Nigerians that can be the judge. You have the marking scheme. The president has given you the marking scheme. How are you marking and rating him? One of those who said they could do better than him in the 2023 election is Omoyele Sowore, AAC presidential candidate in that election. Is live for us here now. So thanks so much, Mr. Sowore, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Are you excited now that President Bola Tinubu is on the way to delivering those promises he said he promised Nigerians in 2023?
Excited? Oh, I'm very sad that we're in 2 years into their regime that we're in this situation. We're in a conundrum. And as you introduced your position about the government, I also was watching when the chief, I think it was the chief of defense staff or chief of army staff, who had just told Nigerians that they're helpless. Is asking the people at this point to please help them defeat Boko Haram. They can't understand why Boko Haram is strong and it needs the community to help. That should not be coming from the army. That should be coming from vigilantes. So security is number one. The economy is number two. They said they're going to they said they removed fuel subsidy. The next day, we're supposed to see Eldorado. People are poorer than they've ever been. We are being compared with Sudan in terms of the likelihood of a place where a child won't live up to 5 years after they're born. We have become a nation that has pushed people not into poverty this time around, into multidimensional poverty. In 1970, there are less than 7 million Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. In 2025, there are over 170 million Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. The minimum wage in 1975 is better than that of 2025. So tell me, in which area did they promise they will help this country that they have assisted the country? So they declare that there's going to be renewed hope, but everywhere is hopeless. It's renewed hopelessness. And we're not just saying this. We are speaking as people who are Nigerians who observe this, who know this, and who can tell you categorically that the Nigerian people are worse than they were a few months ago. I'm not even going to talk about it.
Are you saying this as a bitter person who lost the election? I mean, because
I've said this several times on your show that we shouldn't be discussing election because we never had an election.
Because you are still an opposition voice. Yeah. You ran the election. The fact that you ran in that election.
I ran in it.
And it's almost impossible for you to be able to agree with the person you said you could do better than.
No, if they are doing better, even if I disagree with them, the rest of the country will be on their side. But they are not doing well. They are not doing anything, as a matter of fact. They're just huffing and puffing.
There is nothing in the last 2 years that is good in
Well, you go out of here and go tell Nigerian people that there's something that's happened in the last.
I mean, there are a few things that people could applaud. The loans being given to students.
Loan given to students. Did the man not just come here now and say 250 billion naira was stolen between 2021 and 2022 from the public? This was found by the Accountant General, and he broke it down. People were overpaid, monies that were not returned, contractors that were overpaid.
I'm talking about the loan scheme
250
for
billion
students.
naira.
You were a former student union leader.
I went to the University of Lagos, paying 90 naira for accommodation and 45 naira school fees. How can you ask me to applaud somebody who is giving loan for people to go to school? I went to school in the US. I paid loans. It was the worst decision I ever took, to take loans to go to school. People are getting depressed, committing suicide in the US because they took student loans. The Biden administration wanted to pay back all the loans, but the Supreme Court, of course, their court system didn't allow it. I'm just using that to tell you that it's an antiquated idea that you ask people who are not going to find jobs when they leave the university to take loans to go to school. But you are subsidizing people who do nothing in the country with huge amount of money. I just mentioned to you 250 billion naira. How much was the amount of money that was allocated to student loans? Was that up to 250 billion?
But that was in the Buhari
we're talking about Buhari. By the time the Accountant General is done with this one, with this government, you probably will find that there's 3 times more money has been stolen in the last 2 years.
You don't agree in the manner in which the subsidy was removed, but do you agree with the unification of the exchange window?
I was on the show with you here, and I told you that I won't float in the naira because the naira is not something that you toy with. It's national currency. You cannot subjugate the naira to the whims and caprices of market and speculators. That's what they are doing to the naira. That's why. How is it that the Nigerian naira, has less value than the currency of the guys in Cotonou and Ghana? What did they do differently? It is economic policy.
What would you have done differently?
We've discussed that several times. That first and foremost is to have a monetary policy that is about strengthening the economy. It's about people who are competent. Our monetary policy is about buying and selling of forex. That's what it is. And I was on a show a few days ago here when I talked about inflation, where the MPC meets all the time and they come and increase what they call the interest rates. And I said, it's a 98 idea by Paul Volcker and Jimmy Carter. And when Jimmy Carter did that, he lost the election. His tenure was not renewed. And you are repeating that in 2025 in Nigeria because you must understand the reason why there's inflation, right? There are several reasons why you have inflation. And one of it is not what they are doing there. You cannot borrow money to people at 27% interest rate. There are some banks that are doing 33% interest rate. If you look at the banks across board, some of them are doing as high as 35% interest. How do you borrow money at 35% interest rate in any country and make profit and the economy will grow? No, because what is driving up inflation is not what they think it's, or what they should know is not is driving. What is driving up inflation is that the moment they bring the allocation on a monthly basis, they're going to change it to dollar. Nobody is productive here. They are buying and selling Forex. Governors, everybody is doing it. That is the problem. And you then have a central bank that is doing retail banking instead of central banking. And you want those set of people to fix your monetary policy.
You have your own manner in which, and you don't agree with this government in the manner in which they're going about it. Yes. Some institutions, global institutions have said, look, these are audacious moves being made by this government. And this government have come forward to say, look, whatever we are doing, for example, we have immediate and temporal pains, but we shall be seeing the benefit in a longer term. Don't you believe, you know me, Mr. Bola Tinubu very, very well.
I don't know him well enough to know that he's competent. I know him as a politician who knows his way around manipulating people. That's what I know about him. I don't know him as a
assessment of,
it is.
Of the
That's
president.
why Nigeria is in the situation that it is today. It's the guy who came 2 years ago and said he built Lagos, and then he came and ruined Nigeria because they never built Lagos in the first place. They were manipulating everybody in Lagos and collecting taxes and taking care of these taxes themselves. So the truth is that I never know him to be a competent person. That was why we're warning Nigerians 2 years ago that do not make the mistake of allowing these people come to power. I won't say vote for them, because nobody voted for them.
So in this case, you do not in any way have a trust, because I'm imagining when in the renewed Auditor General, they said, we're making very, very strong and audacious.
No,
and
I wanted to actually intervene when you said, some international organizations are, saying that they are making audacious moves. One of the ones they paraded was Moody's. Moody's is people who rate bonds. Nigeria is not a company that is selling bonds. Of course, we have bonds, we buy Euro bonds. And the reason...
CBN has gone to the...
I know. I want to explain you. I know to explain to you.
Fully subscribed, in fact, oversubscribed.
No, there's nobody who will not subscribe to bonds where you get short-term investment and you have the highest rate of return. That's what the Nigerian bond system is. It's because it's not the kind of bonds that are well respected. So they have the highest return on investment within the shortest period of time. Who will not buy that kind of bond, especially when it's collateralized with our oil money? That's why we're getting over. It's not because our economy is doing well. It's because anybody can come in, make money, or even rig our bond system, your stocks here, and then you walk out after a few months. So you don't think Nigerians should
be hopeful about this government?
You become a billionaire just subscribing to the Nigerian bond because it is the kind of bonds that gives money to investors who don't care about
So you don't think Nigerians should be hopeful about this government and its policies?
No, I shouldn't. I don't think so. And I've warned Nigerians, and I'll keep saying it, the more you hope, the more you lose regarding this government.
What should they then do?
It's up to them to decide whether they want to keep suffering or they bond together and bundle them out. Nobody should be put in the situation that Nigerians are in now. And I'm never afraid to say it anywhere that I'm confronted with this question, that you are not at liberty, or no government should put you in a situation where you are perpetually in bondage. And you say, well, you have to wait for 4 years. Nobody should be put in...
So your description of the performance of this government is for you less than desirable?
I don't need to tell you. That was my position since we started this show. That it's not only undesirable, it is unforgivable that we found ourselves in the situation that we're in now.
There are a lot of people who think that Bola Tinubu has been preparing himself for far too long for this position. He knows what he's doing. He's done it before. He can do it again. And he's certain about where he wants to lead this nation. And there are those who are close to him who say, look, the plan of the president is to be the Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria, to change things around and make Nigeria a great nation. You don't see that coming?
This president is not going to be a Lee Kuan Yew. It's going to be an undertaker.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what do undertakers do? When they kill people, they put them in a coffin, dance a bit around with them, and bury them. That's what they came to do. And that is why you were mentioning that this one was prepared. The same thing they said about Buhari that he's been preparing since 1978 when he was Commissioner for Petroleum Resources. And when he came back here in 2015, you know what he did to Nigeria? He killed Nigeria. And now they are preparing Nigeria for burial with the same person you said is. That's why we're warning you guys on these shows when we come on your show. We don't get to come here frequently. That the so-called experienced people that who always tender experience as their own qualification, as their CV during election, that you should look at what they have done. The experience we should look at is the experience we have had with them, not the experience of how long they have been screwing the country. And that is why we must keep telling you this, and I will say to Nigerians, no matter how much we get airtime, we will warn you and say, look, the earlier you get to know what is happening to you, the earlier you reject it, the earlier you fight back, the better for you. Don't let anybody deceive you that somebody is going to become a Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria. When Boko Haram that he met in Borno State is already in Kogi State. When the Naira he met at 460 is at 1,650 today. When the salary of workers, when it was 15,000 Naira, is less than the 70,000 Naira that it is today. When the roads that they said they are constructing 700 kilometers, they only did 30 kilometers. They are telling you that in Ondo State, I called Ondo State today, I want to see the plan for Ondo State. They don't have it because they never plan to construct any 700 kilometers road. They just want to do 47 kilometers from Eco Atlantic to Dangote Refinery, and then the rest of it, they'll be playing with you. We warned you about all this, and this is government of liars. And we have never minced words that if you keep letting them do what they're doing with you and you get distracted by all this conversation about coalitions and all that, you're going to find yourself in worse situations than you are now. Because that has been the story of Nigeria since the emergence of civil rule. We don't have democracy yet, but we've transferred, there's a transition to civil rule. What we are looking for now is real democracy. Yes.
In summary, because I'll take you to the coalition, because I understand that you might be leading another kind of coalition.
I'm the leader of the coalition of the oppressed, but not the coalition of the hungry, led by Amechi and the rest of them.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a moment. I imagine that, how do you wrap up in your own summary the 2 years of President Bola Tinubu in every ramification and what Nigerians should be looking forward to in the next 2 years?
There's nothing to look forward to. Anything that's going to happen to you in the next 2 years that's already happened to you in the last 2 years.
You are being a prophet of doom now.
I'm not a prophet of doom. I'm telling you what will happen. You don't need to be a prophet to know the direction we are headed. We are headed for doom if we continue with the trajectory that we're getting now. In the next 2 years, they are not going to do anything regarding governance. Next 2 years is about election, how they can consolidate their hold on power, lie to you. There will be a lot of tension. They might kill people. They will deceive some people. They will manipulate a few people. They will do some cosmetic, things to make people get fooled. They will set up fake coalitions so that you think that, they have opposition. What they are very good at doing now is that they set up their own opposition. I walked in here, I was joking with a man from PDP. I said, you are the APC branch of the PDP, like people like Wike, that's the APC branch, in the PDP. So that's what you're going to get, but you cannot get anything better than that. There's nothing on the table that will take you to the place that you can
which
call
other political parties
land.
are you? You said you are leading a coalition.
The people, it's not a political.
It's only AAC and yourself that is leading that coalition.
It's a coalition that is connecting with the people, and those are the oppressed. I'm not going to be part of it. I said it from the beginning, and I think we had this conversation, that this whole coalition is either trying to get attention for those who don't have a job, or those who feel
what do you mean who don't have a job?
Well,
former Vice President, Amechi, former
Amechi said it. Amechi said it. Amechi has been in power since in 1999. He has been in power, and he's complaining of hunger already. So what does that tell you?
I think he was referencing Nigerians who are hungry.
No, he said if others are not hungry, me, I'm hungry. And he said it at a birthday party where he rented a hall and had, a performer that probably collected 10 million naira to perform per hour. But that's not the issue. What we're trying to say is that please don't be distracted. What needs to be done must be done, bond together, but don't be distracted and don't let people lie to you that they're interested. Even if they somehow transfer power to themselves, you're going to get the same result. They are the same people. Just changing uniform and changing parties overnight is not the same thing.
So you're not joining the articles of this world, the Rotimi Amechi, the El-Rufai, and those who are saying that enough is enough. In fact, El-Rufai said they will not allow this government to go further than 2027, and in fact, they will send President Bola Tinubu back to Lagos in 2027. And you don't think, I mean, that's what you wanted to. You've lived all your life wanting to become Nigeria's president.
Do you know the first time I knew about the article, 1992? It was contesting against Abiola, and I was a student union president at the University of Lagos. If I didn't join him when I was 21 years old, knowing who they are, why would I join them when I'm 54 years old, knowing who they are? And having covered them, having understood them. I know all of them. I know their character. I know they mean nothing good for the country.
What's your strategy? Since you're a lone man and a lone voice.
I'm not a lone voice.
You said you're not joining the coalition.
No, the coalition is what is lonely. That's why they can't even hold meetings. That's why they can't find a party to join. They were joining SCP one day, the next day they're in ADC. Now they say they want to register a party. That's loneliness. Because any coalition that is without ideology is a lonely coalition. No, a coalition without conviction, a coalition without character.
There are those
who
are of the opinion that if things go on and opposition parties are not united and coordinated, it's going to be an easy ride for Bola Tinubu and the APC.
It is what they are doing that will make it easy for him to run, that will make him easy to return to office. They are preventing the real organic coalition of the oppressed to fight. People are getting distracted. Nigerian people actually think these guys are fighting.
What is the best way to have a headway? 2027.
Is for the people to understand that the only way out is the way they design for themselves.
And who is the best man for the job?
Here you have me. And I'll keep telling you, regardless of how long you dismiss it, one day you thank the moment that we shared together, that we gave you an alternative, but you rejected it.
Are you talking to the Nigerian people?
I'm talking to the Nigerian people, including you.
No, I'm a journalist.
Yes, because you are Nigerian. I'm also a journalist, don't forget.
No, you used to be one.
I'm still a journalist. So
but you're a politician
I may be a busybody journalist, but I see, it's a profession that I actually did found and I love. So, but, as I always say, there has to be a different direction. And the word you don't like is a revolution. There has to be one.
Omoyele Sowore, AAC presidential candidate in the 2023 election. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thank you for
inviting me. But that's our show for tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. God bless Nigeria.